Hello viewers, today I put together a little presentation on how to declare variables in Python and C#. This could also be called why people like Python more. And we're using integers because integers are easy and because it really shows the difference on how these two programming languages store variables. So we're going to start with the carefree world of Python. I have a fun little scenario set up where we have our developer who says, I need an int with the value of 10, and is making a comment to that end. And Python interpreter says, no problem, give it any name and a value, and I'll figure out what to do. Like X, and the interpreter says, yeah, but kind of boring. The important part here is that Python is a dynamically typed language, which means it doesn't know what type it is until the program's actually running. So when our developer says x equals 10, it's not going to try to infer the type until this program's actually running, at which point it will, just like I said, it will infer, because it's a 10, that the type is an integer. So let's see that play out. The developer says x equals 10 and then starts being, hey, wait a second, I could make it any name. And it gets encouraged by the interpreter. Comes up with another name. Now they're just getting all giddy. But in the end, our developer decides to stick with y. And then asks the question, how do you know it's an int? And the Python says, I just know. And we know that it's because it infers the type. Now they're having a little love fest here. But we find in our developer's tragic past that he's been hurt by other compilers and really wants to confirm what the type is. So he's going to use the type keyword along with the variable y. And what we would expect is that this is going to print out int. We run it and we see, in fact, it does print int. The developer is overjoyed. Python shows its support. And now that our developer says, hey, instead of 10, can I make it a trillion? And Python says, yeah, you can make it as big as you want, which is crazy because in like Java or C++ or C or whatever, ints can't be a trillion. But Python did it, much to our amazement. In fact, we're going to print out the value of y just to confirm that Python can handle enormously large integers. It's amazing and so easy to use, says our developer. Well, let's try that whole scenario with C# and see what happens. Our happy-go-lucky developer says, hey, C#, let's make a variable. But the C# compiler, kind of a jerk, very strict. Our developer says x equals 10 like they did with Python, and that's not going to work at all. As we know, first of all, you need some sort of semicolon to show the end of the statement. And when we try to run it, we run into another error. That error is that the type wasn't defined. In C#, the compiler needs to know what type you want to use so that it can, compile. Now with those two changes in place, our developer tries to use the print function to see what x is. Of course, C# isn't that easy. We don't say print in C#. We say console.writeLine. Our developer thinks that's too many characters, but tries to persevere. Unfortunately, they used a lowercase l for line instead of uppercase. Gets chastised by the compiler and changes that console.writeLine to capital L. Finally, this runs. And we see the 10, and the developer's happy. And now the developer, once again, says, hey, let's make it a trillion. And the compiler does not like that idea because, as we discussed, C# cannot handle a trillion. We only have 32 bits to work with in C# and C++ and Java, etc., etc. It's not going to handle it. He complains that Python lets you do it. C# responds that Python is stores its values on the heap because integers in Python are objects, where in C# they are not objects, they're value types, and they're stored on the stack. So let's talk about that a little bit. In C#, these ints are stored in 32-bit values. So the max value is 2 to the 32nd power minus 1. You subtract 1 because we have to include 0 in that, which gives you a value of about 4.3 billion. But usually we want negative and positive, so that means that the max value is actually about 2.15 billion. So why do we do it this way? Why do we put these limitations on us? Well, when you store an integer on the stack, it's much faster and uses less memory, and sometimes you want that, like in gaming or embedded systems or missile defense systems or things that have to be fast. So that's the end of my little discussion about the difference between C# and Python, declaring types within each. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will make another video soon.